Good morning, everyone. Um, my name is Ifoma Odolami. I'm an immigration attorney from the Odolami Law Firm. We're in Cedar Knolls, New Jersey, but our firm serves clients from all 50 states and abroad. So today I'm dropping some really good nuggets. So I hope you guys are ready with your pen and paper. Listen up. Um, I'm going to wait for a few more people to come in. In the meantime, today I'm channeling my Nigerian heritage. I'm wearing this outfit. It's what we call adire in Nigeria, but I guess otherwise known as tie and dye, tie dye, right? So let's get started. What are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about uh, Vawa, the ABCs of Vawa. I want to give you guys the basic information that you need to know about Vawa. So if you know any friend who might benefit from this, call them now and share this live with them so that they get to know what Vawa is all about, right? You can also follow me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, so that you can get updated with any new information as I bring it out, okay? So let me put the comment section on so I can, you guys can chit chat with me. I will finish my presentation, and then if you have any questions, I will answer your questions, okay? So let's talk about VAWA. Now, VAWA is it's an acronym that stands for Violence Against Women's Act. And it was a law passed by Congress in 1994, which gave some battered foreigners a special route to getting their green card. And the reason was because Congress is aware that if you're related to somebody who's abusive, and at the same time that person is responsible for giving you a green card, that is enormous power that they can use against you. So VAWA was created in 1994, and it's a way to get a green card if you're in an abusive relationship. So I'm going to go through the different types of statuses or relationships that you must have to be able to qualify for VAWA. So basically, the first question is, who qualifies for VAWA? If you are the spouse of a U.S. citizen or a green card holder and you're being abused, you qualify for VAWA. That's number one. Number two, you can also file for VAWA if your child is being abused by their U.S. citizen parent. You can file as the parent of an abused child. Number three, if you are the parent of a U.S. citizen over the age of 21. Now, note the difference. With the first two, it could be U.S. citizen or green card, but with parent, only U.S. citizen. So only the parent of a U.S. citizen can file for a green card under VAWA, not a green card holder. And number four is an abused child. An abused child under the age of 21, abused by the U.S. citizen parent or green card holder parent, can file for VAWA. And now, typically, that child has to put in the petition before the child is 21. However, if the child is allowed to file until they're 25, if they can show that the reason for the delay in the filing was because of the abuse. Now, the great thing about VAWA is a humanitarian pathway to citizenship. So a lot of the things that are required in a regular filing are waived, right? And I'll tell you the advantages of VAWA. For instance, if you come in without a visa coming through the border, or your visa has expired, you can file for VAWA regardless of how you came in. If you file for VAWA, you're not required to have somebody file an affidavit of support showing that you're not going to be a public charge. You don't need that. If you file for VAWA, the good thing about it is that there's no requirement for you to stay married to your U.S. citizen spouse or be divorced from them. It doesn't matter. However, if you're divorced, you have to file your VAWA petition within 2 years of the divorce. also, another thing about VAWA is if, for instance, you have come into the country and you have left again and come back, typically that would be a permanent bar because that's, multiple entries is a problem. However, if you can show that the reason that you came and you went was related to the abuse, you might qualify for VAWA without a problem. So VAWA is, it's the typical inadmissibility issues are waived with VAWA, right? And let's see. The good thing also with VAWA is it's confidential. There's a separate mailing route for VAWA so that your U.S. citizen will not know that you file, U.S. citizen relative or green card holder relative will not know that you filed for VAWA because USCIS does not want to put you in more danger, right? So what happens is, as your attorney, we use our address as a safe mailing place for you so that all your correspondence comes to us. And then we share with you in a secure portal that our office uses, right? So you have to log into that portal and with a password. Nobody else will have access to it unless you share that password with them. Another thing that a lot of VAWA clients are concerned about is whether the abuser will get into trouble. And the answer is no, unequivocally no. And the reason is because the government is aware that a lot of people who are being abused will not discuss their abuse because of fear of the abuser. They don't want the abuser to get into trouble because maybe they still love the abuser regardless of how they've been treated. So your abuser is not going to get into trouble. Your abuser is not going to know. And you can self-petition. That's what this is. It's a self-petition. This petition is you petitioning for yourself. And you can file for VAWA even if you're in deportation proceedings. You can file for VAWA even if the previous filing by your spouse has been denied. So the important thing is that you should consult with an attorney who specializes in VAWA to see if you qualify. And the thing about this is, with other types of petition like the I-130, when your spouse is filing for you, if you're denied, you can file again within a year because typically it takes about a year. VAWA takes like 24 months, right? So if you're denied, you might not be in a position to file again because you might be time barred. So that's why it's really important for you to make sure that when you put in your petition, you do so properly and you're able to put all the information that's needed so that you can get your prima facie, which is the first step, right? The prima facie is that letter that you get that says, well, we haven't reviewed the documents that everything you've provided because it takes them 24 months. However, you've made a preliminary showing, almost like a pre-approval, right? But remember, it's not guaranteed. Just because you have a prima facie does not mean that you're going to be approved for VAWA. It's just them saying that you've met the first step. And with that first step, we're going to give you this prima facie letter, which allows you to get public benefits because the government is aware that lots of abuse victims are in really precarious financial situations. So with that, you could get, depending on what state you are, because it differs from state to state, the benefits you could get food stamps, housing, health insurance, and all that, right? So if you get the prima facie letter, you may also be able to get a driver's license depending on what state you are in. In New Jersey, we don't need the prima facie letter anymore because undocumented people are able to get a driver's license here in New Jersey. So, so those are some of the benefits of VAWA, right? And because VAWA, sometimes the abuse prevents VAWA self-petitioners from getting documents that are required, right? The standard is any credible evidence. And that's what allows us to think outside the box for our clients, because sometimes they don't have the documents. Sometimes you may not have the proof that your U.S. citizen spouse is a U.S. citizen or your green card holder spouse has a green card. So that sometimes requires us to think outside the box. And we've done things such as, looking for mortgages, looking for deeds, looking for voting records, even sometimes on the marriage license. And the good thing is, if there's been a prior filing, there's a way that you can tell USCIS, you know what? I know this person is a U.S. citizen or green card holder, but I don't have the evidence, but you can get the evidence for me, right? So VAWA really is like a godsend, right? And the purpose of this video is for those who have been abused or treated badly, right, to know that there's hope, right? And that they just have to take the first step. So what qualifies you to file for VAWA? You have to show the relationship, which we have discussed. You have to show that you're in a bona fide marriage. It has to be a real marriage. It cannot be a marriage that was entered into for immigration benefits only. If it's a sham marriage, you're not getting anything from that. You must show it's a good faith marriage, right? You also have to show that you've lived with the person. There's no requirement regarding how long you should live with a person, because they don't want people to stay in bad situations because they're like, oh, I know I have to stay 3 months. I'm going to hang in there even though my life is in danger. There's no requirement, right? So, but you have to show that you've lived with that person for some period of time. You also have to show that you've been abused, and we'll go into the different types of abuse. It could be the language is abuse or extreme cruelty, right? So basically that in itself tells you that it doesn't have to be physical abuse alone. It could be a host of different types of abuse, emotional, financial, and we'll go into that as I speak some more. And finally, you have to show that you're a person of good moral character, right? And a person of good moral character is somebody who, you don't have a criminal background. However, if you've committed some crime, it could be waivable, right? So just because you've done something wrong in the past does not mean that you're barred from filing for VAWA. You should talk to a lawyer and see whether what you've done is waivable. And a lot of times, if that conduct is connected to the abuse, you can make a good showing that you still qualify for VAWA regardless, all right? So let's talk about the documents we're going to need. So we'll start with the documents that show your relationship to the abuser. Marriage license, if you're married to the abuser. If you're the parent of a U.S. citizen, you want to show a birth certificate. If you're the step parent, you want to show that the marriage that created the step relationship happened before the child turned 18. All of that information, you want to show that. Now, I want to talk about the bigamy exception. See, I told you guys I'm giving you nuggets today. So if you're married to a U.S. citizen who is not properly, or green card holder who's not properly divorced, your marriage is void. And what that means is you should not expect any immigration benefits from a void marriage. So if that U.S. citizen tricked you, told you that they were divorced, and you got into that marriage thinking that they were divorced, and you actually had a ceremony, even though the marriage is considered void by law, you can still apply under VAWA, under the bigamy exception, right? So showing the relationship to the abuser, your marriage license, your birth certificate, and adoption certificate, and all that stuff. That's what you use to show your relationship to the abuser. So the next thing is we're going to show the status of the abuser. How do you show that? You can show the birth certificate of the abuser, showing that they were born in the United States. You can show their U.S. passport. You can show the certificate of naturalization if they're a naturalized citizen. If you have a prior approval, like an I-130 that has been approved in a prior filing, you can attach that. If you have any USCIS document with the alien number, with the abuser's alien number, if they're a green card holder or a naturalized citizen, you can attach that. If you have their voting card, you can attach that. Even if you have a social security card, we can use all of that to show that they're a U.S. citizen or a green card holder, right? And if all else fails, we do a FOIA, which is a Freedom of Information Act. But typically, asking USCIS to get that information is not a problem, but we like to give them as much as we can to help them to get that information themselves. So the next thing that we have to show is really important. You have to show it's a real marriage. Real marriage. You can't cut corners with this. So even if you're being abused, if you can't prove it's a real marriage, you can't you're not going to win your Vawa case. And so I've done lots and lots and lots of videos on how to prove a bona fide marriage. So I'm going to go through it real quick. You have to show that, well, first of all, you have to show that, you're properly married. If you're divorced before, if you're married before and divorced, you must show proof of the fact that that divorce is valid. And to my Nigerian people, you know that that's a problem, because for some reason there's a lot of fake divorces out there. USCIS checks that. So if your divorce is not valid, the current marriage is void. I said this before. Now, if on the side of the U.S. citizen, they're the ones who deceived you into thinking that it was they were properly divorced and they're not, that's maybe the bigamy exception could work. However, if you are the one who is not properly divorced and you're married to a U.S. citizen, it's not going to work because your marriage is void. So you get the divorce decrees from your prior marriages. You get the divorce decree from your spouse's prior marriages to show that both of you were, free to marry at the time you got married. You also have to get things that show that you're living together as man and wife, like you have a lease. And the lease has to be properly signed, because sometimes I get leases and that nobody's signed. That's not helpful. You want to get leases that were signed by both parties, or at least if the beneficiary, the self-petitioner, was not in the lease, maybe they were named as somebody who could live in the apartment or home or whatever. If you have a mortgage and you're not on the mortgage but on the deed, that's helpful. Utility bills, typically we don't submit one. We like to submit at least 6 months to show, continuity, right? Now, we'd like to have utility bills that show that both parties reside in the same place. So you don't have to have utility bills with both your names on it if you don't want to, but you can have one person having utility bills for gas, another person have utility being named in the utility bill for the water or whatever, but you have to show that both of you reside together. And talking about that, driver's licenses, right, is important. Now, for those who have been able to get a driver's license, you want to show that both of you have the same driver's license with the same address. So if your spouse, if you have a spouse who never changed their address, you can explain that away, but it's always a good idea to make sure that both of you have the same address for your important documents. Now, if you should have a joint bank account. The joint bank account should have both your names, and it should also have evidence that both people are using the bank account. So if you have an account where it has both your names, but there's really nothing going on in the account, that's not helpful. If you have an account, what we're really looking for in the bank account, first of all, you should send as many as you can, but you also want to see that the bills are being paid through the bank account. You want to see that if there are 2 debit cards in that account, you want to see that both of them are being used. You want to see that if you're working, either one of you or both of you, it's really helpful if both of you are, if you're doing a direct debit, that your paycheck or your pay is going into that account. That really counts big, because it shows that there's that trust, which is, which a marriage is supposed to be about. Now, I know that a lot of people, the financial abuse is that your spouse will take the money that you're earning. And so if you're not able to do that, we can explain that away. But I'm just saying that it's really helpful if you're able to show that this is an account that's been actively used by both of you, right? Now, if you have children, naming one or your spouse as an emergency in the children's school, or with the pediatrician, that's helpful, And what else? If you're living with somebody and you're not on the lease, maybe you could have your neighbors or the landlord or somebody say, write an affidavit saying that you guys live together, and they know that you live together because they've seen you, and they know that both of you are, have presented to each other as man and wife. In that token, you can also get affidavits from family and friends who know about your relationship, from maybe before you even got married to after you got married. And that affidavit can come from anywhere. It could come from your family and friends abroad. Maybe they attended the wedding, maybe they didn't. It can come from people here. They just have to sign it before a notary public, and the affidavit really should have. This is what I tell my clients. The first paragraph, you want to identify who you are, right? My name is Jane Doe. I live at ABC address. My phone number is this. My email is this, because in case USCIS wants to contact you, which they have a right to, because you did write an affidavit swearing about something, they may want to contact you. Now, the second paragraph would be you explaining how you got to know the person. Why are you writing this affidavit, right? How do you know this person? So in a Bauer case, you could be, if you want to, if you're writing this affidavit because you're trying to show it was a valid marriage, you want to say this is how you know them, and this is how you know it was a valid marriage because of ABC. Maybe you guys used to hang out together, go watch a show, watch a movie, you've gone to their house several times and all that. And then finally, you have to certify that you're telling the truth. I certify that what I have said is true, and if I know that if it's not true, I'm liable to punishment. And then you have to sign it before notary public. This can happen in the United States, outside the United States. Just scan it to us, okay? Now, what else can you show as proof of bona fides? If you buy large ticket items, you bought a refrigerator, you bought a car insurance, health insurance, life insurance with each other as beneficiaries, those really typically are really good. And so these are some of the things that you could use to show a bona fide marriage. Also, even text messages between both of you. It doesn't have to be, lovey-dovey, but it's just something showing that you have a relationship. Please, pick up chicken and, bring home so we can make dinner. Photographs are really important, if you can get them. I know a lot of people, when they're upset with their spouses or whoever, they begin to delete the photograph. Please don't do that. If you now don't. But if you don't have it, you don't have it. We do the best with what we have. So what are we looking for in terms of photos? We're looking at photos that show you with other people, which means that people know you guys to be a couple. We're looking for photos that show you guys doing things to other people, with family, with friends. We're looking for items that show that maybe you've traveled together, you've gone on vacation together, you've attended shows together, and all that kind of stuff. So those are examples of bona fide proof of a good faith marriage, right? Now, taxes, before I forget, that's a big thing. If you're together, file your taxes together. I don't care if your accountant tells you you're going to save money if you file single or married while filing separately. Just file together. And that's, if you have that and you're ready to file your Vawa case, that's proof that it was a good relationship at some point. And if you don't have it, you don't have it. I don't want people to think that they must have something. Sometimes a Vawa self-petitioner has nothing. We've had clients that were kicked out of the house with nothing, right? And we've been able to successfully file a Vawa petition for them. So come as you are, what you have, and then we'll brainstorm together to see what we can do. Now, the most important thing with the Vawa application is your declaration, your statement as to what's happened to you, right? And the more detailed you are, the more likely, it is to be credible, okay? Because your story is different in a way that no other person's is. I mean, I know that sometimes I say that I feel like these abusers go to like a special school, like College of Abuse, because the things they do to intending immigrants who have no papers, it's like all of them were coached. They know what to do. They know to threaten with calling ICE. They know, exactly what to do. So, however, the way things happen to you is still your story, and it's still different from another person's story. So you want to tell your story. So with that segue, let me go into abuse. But let me take notice of all the people who are here. Hi, Cardi. How are you? Hi, Sam. Hi, Edwin. Nice of you guys to join. Thank you for joining. So now let's go to the meat and potatoes of this abuse. There's so many misconceptions about abuse. Some people think that you're not abused unless somebody's smacking you around. And I'm here to tell you that, nope, You can be abused in different ways. Being smacked around is not the only way to abuse somebody. So let's talk about, first of all, physical abuse. That could be smacking you, that could be hitting you, that could be pushing you, that could be breaking things around you, putting you in fear of your life. That could be driving drunk with you in the car, putting you in fear of your life. That could be dropping you off in a dangerous neighborhood, like telling you get out of the car and leaving you there knowing you don't have a way to come back. That could all count as physical abuse. So it doesn't have to be actually hitting, but of course, hitting, punching, pushing, breaking things, that's all abuse. And if you have evidence of abuse, such as you have, pictures where your face is swollen or there are marks on you, that's great documentary evidence. But a lot of people don't, or they do and they deleted it. Or if you've gone to a hospital for an injury, even if you don't tell the caregivers that you were beaten up, the fact that you were there with this injury is helpful, because a lot of people who are being abused are not telling the doctors, oh, my spouse pushed me. No, they don't say anything. They just because part of the abuse is being intimidated by the person who is abusing them, so they won't say anything. So we expect that. So, but if you have anything that points to a physical abuse, maybe you got a temporary restraining order, maybe you have a police report, maybe a policeman drove by even though there was no report and there were witnesses, maybe your neighbor saw you being beaten, any of those could, is helpful. So now let's go to the different types of abuse that's not physical, which we term extreme cruelty, right? And USCIS makes a distinction between marital tensions, which they feel is not abuse. So for extreme cruelty, there are different types of extreme cruelty, right? It could be your spouse threatening to call ICE on you. It could be your spouse refusing, if they filed the paper for the I-130 petition, telling you they're not going to show up for the interview, threatening to divorce you because they, telling you that they're going to divorce you and then there's nothing you can do because you're going to be in this country without papers. Or it could be, them hiding your documents so that you don't know what's going on with your immigration application. It could also be, there are different types of psychological abuse. It could be control. That's a big one. When they look, checking through your things, making sure that you're not talking to your family members, preventing you from talking to friends, or it could be telling you, threatening to file false reports with the police. And one thing I've noticed is that sometimes our clients don't even know they've been abused because it's normal to them. Maybe it's normal to their culture too, right? And for instance, I was reading something on Facebook, one of these Facebook pages, where a woman was talking about, I think it was a Nigerian woman talking about how she had gone to, no, I think they're talking about a story. It was a woman that had gone, cut her hair, colored it for her birthday. And she came back and her husband was upset with the fact that she colored her hair and was really, threatening and kicked her out of the house. And a lot of people there, surprisingly, were saying, well, he paid dowry for you, you're his property. You shouldn't make changes on your body without discussing it with your husband. And so if you have friends that think that way, you're not going to know that that behavior is abusive. So that's why it's important to talk to people who are versed in abuse. If you talk to an attorney who does a lot of Vawa cases, because what you think is normal, maybe that's the way what you saw when you were growing up, and this is normal stuff to you. Someone telling you what to wear, what you cannot wear, who you can talk to, who you cannot talk to, kicking you out of the house, meaning that you have to spend the night somewhere, yelling at you, screaming at you. Verbal abuse is also abuse, right? So if this has been normalized for you, you may not think it's abuse, but it is. So let's see, what else is abuse? Like degrading you in front of people, embarrassing you in front of people, using things you've told this person in confidence to make fun of you, to mock you, to mock your heritage, to tell you're not good enough, right? That's all abuse, right? If they're making fun of the way you speak, attacking the way you look, maybe body shaming you, or telling you you're just not as good as other women or other men, because remember that Vawa also, helps men who are being abused. It's not just for women. I want to make that clear. Men are being abused, and for men, they typically don't like to share that they're being abused because they're ashamed of the fact that they're being abused. But men are being abused, right? And it's really hard sometimes to get the abuse story from them, right? But if you're a man that you're in a relationship that's your spouse is treating you badly, you should know that you're not alone. You know, um, same-sex marriages too. There's a lot of abuse there where the partner will threaten to out the other partner, especially when their family don't know that they're in a same-sex relationship. So you want to be, you want to look to see how this person is making you feel, and what are the emotions you're feeling, are you sad, depressed, losing weight, gaining weight, afraid of them walking around them, afraid to offend them, so there's also sexual abuse, forcing you to have sex, on unwanted touching, or demanding sex, or forcing you to have certain do certain things that you don't want to do. And there's no truth to the fact that because you're married, you cannot be sexually abused. There's no truth whatsoever to it. So if you're married and your spouse is treating you badly, calling you names, whore, slut, or community penis, and being derogatory about you sexually, that could be abuse. Now, cheating on its face is not abuse. That's what USCI says. So if you're going through your spouse's phone and you find out he's secretly or her cheating on you, that's what they call marital tension. However, if it's being done in an abusive manner, like this person is putting you at risk for STDs, bringing men into the house, women into the house, or you know, refusing to allow you to use birth control, refusing to use a condom when they know that they're cheating, putting you at risk of getting pregnant when you don't want to get pregnant. Those kind of things could be abusive. Or for a lot of men, this is what happens. You plan with your spouse that you guys are gonna have children when you get married, and then they're taking birth control pills, or trying not to get pregnant without you knowing, and you're there going to fertility clinics trying to figure out why you guys are not getting pregnant. That's abuse, right? So there's also emotional abuse where this person just makes you feel like you're crazy all the time because they're blaming you for what they're doing. The reason I hit you was because you're the reason. It's your fault that you're being abused. It's everything is your fault. It's your fault that they hit you. It's your fault that they turn around and do all these things. And there's some abusers who, one day they're really nice, they beat you up, abuse you, and bring roses. I mean, that abuse is just varied. The way human beings can screw up another human beings and give them trauma is amazing. I'm not even kidding you. So the important thing for you to know that if this is you, there's a way out. Okay? So let's see what else, because it's almost 12 o'clock. I need to go. But other things that you can use to show abuse is if you have maybe text messages from the abuser apologizing, or maybe they've said something derogatory about you on Facebook, Instagram, social media. If you have restraining orders, police reports, criminal records, medical records, domestic shelter records, counseling, mental health records, photographs, letters from the abuser, school records containing comments by maybe your child about the abuse that how children will mention something maybe, or evidence of the abuser's history of drugs, treatment. There are many, many things and many, many ways. And like I said, the most important thing when you are filing a Vawa case is your story. What you went through, how they made you feel. Okay. So I think I finished. I think I've gone through everything I want to say. And for now, because it's almost 12 o'clock, and so I want to say hello to Samson, who joined us, and Edun Olainka Latif, who says good morning. My fiance is coming for a wedding and in Nigeria, 2022. Can you help me file my paper? Of course, we can help you. Edun, call 973-993-1900. We're happy to assist you. So I hope you guys have a great week, and I'm going back to, I have a meeting at 12, but I'll be back again next week, okay? Take care.